Evening, everybody. Anyway, everybody, thank you very much for coming tonight. Really appreciate it. We're going to talk a little bit about the problems that people have with hydroplaning. All right, let's talk about hydroplaning. My first question is, does anybody know what the term hydroplaning actually refers to? See a comment there that it has to do with boats. Yes, it does. It has to do with boats. It also has to do with cars. Sometimes in car terminology, it's called aquaplaning. So it could be referred to as hydroplaning or aquaplaning. No, it doesn't have to do with the type of tires. Well, it does to an extent. That's actually quite a good thought, because it has to do with the traction that your tires have to the road. If you don't have sufficient traction on the road, then your car can get into a situation of hydroplaning, and that has to do also with the quality of your tires. Okay, so we're going to quickly go through that, and then I'm going to pass the floor on to Raquel, and she will share a little bit of who we are and what we are, and then afterwards we'll have an open Q&A if anybody wants to ask questions or has anything that they'd like to have clarified. I see somebody says it's to do with flying. Yeah, it has to do with flying in the sense that your car might slip on the road and you'll go flying into the bush. But apart from that, it's not actually flying in the air, hopefully not. Anyway, so let me explain the first part of this to you. There are situations where your car tires can actually go above the surface of the road as a result of water. So the first situation that arises, and we'll look at a situation where the road surface has been dry for a time period. What happens as the cars pass over the dry road surface, the oil from the cars drop onto the road and permeate in between the stones in the road, and you get this layer of oil lying lower than the surface points that are sticking up on the road. So you've got the little points all sticking up on the road, and the tire goes over and runs on the point, so it has good traction. But below that, there's oil, a thin film of oil lying inside the tar. What then happens is you get a little bit of rain, not a lot, just enough rain to lift the oil. And at that stage, that film of oil is actually now covering the surface of the points on the tar, and the traction potential between the tire and the tar becomes very, very slippery. And then you get a form of slippage happening, or you get a loss of traction as the car hits that layer of very light rain and creates a massive problem. So that's the first part. And that is normally one form of aquaplaning that takes place. So you've had no rain for a long period of time, because if you have a lot of rain, the water washes the oil out of the tar, and it's not that much of a problem. But if you have a light shower of rain on the tar and there's been a dry period, you can get this oil lifting up and then making a film of oil or diesel on the top of the tar, and then you get a great loss of traction. Now, that's the first form. The second form is where you have a lot of rain and there's actually a substantial amount of water on the tar, which actually the car's tires cannot cut through. Now, normally when the car is below a certain speed, say below 50 miles per hour is sort of the cutting off point at which hydroplaning, above 50 miles per hour, you're in danger of hydroplaning. Obviously, the different treads, the different tires, the different circumstances, the height of the aggressiveness of the tar, all of that sort of stuff comes into play. But it's normal that hydroplaning will take place from 50 miles per hour up. And then what happens is when you're driving at that speed, your tire rides above the tar itself on this water film, and it's as good as riding on ice. You have even less control than what you have on ice, because your car will just go in any direction all over the place, and you'll have no braking, and that's it. It just planes on top of the water. It's like a boat planing on top of the water. At a certain speed, a boat will actually pick up, and it will no longer be running through the water. It will be running on top of the water. And this is the same thing that happens to a car above a certain speed if there's too much water on the road. So whenever you're on a highway in heavy rain, it's not just the mist that's the problem that creates on the highway. It's also the amount of water that's lying on the tar. So you need to always be driving at a speed where your tires have got sufficient time to cut through the water. If your tires cannot cut and displace the water so that your tires remain in contact with the tar, you get a situation of hydroplaning. And at that stage, you just lose control. Now, the problem is often that you'll get into a hollow section where there's a lot of water, and you're coming into that at 60 or 70 miles per hour. You hit that water, your car will go over the top of the water. Your tires will go over the top of the water and might start to spin your car around, or the wind might turn your car or drift your car off the road. There's no traction whatsoever. And then when you get through that patch on the other end, you now hit the tar again, and your car can flip over because you're not correctly orientated. So it is a really, really scary situation. And I've actually had a situation where this has happened in the past, where I was driving along. We had a very heavy rainstorm. And the next thing I knew, I had no control. So turning the wheel didn't matter, brakes didn't matter, nothing happened. Nothing would react. Luckily, my car didn't drift too long on the hydroplane. It hit the tar on the other side, and I was able to keep control of the car. But if there's enough water and you can lose complete control of the car, then it can get really, really serious. But that was a really scary situation. So if you see a puddle of water in the road, you've got a lot of things that come up. The first thing is you don't know how deep that water is. That's the first thing. The second thing is you've got to be thinking about hydroplaning. Hydroplaning is really a significant problem. And the amount of rain that we're getting at the moment, there's lots of water around. And water on the highways can create mist. Mist on the highways can create lack of vision, and also increases the possibility of an actual hydroplaning or loss of traction as a result of water. And the one thing we don't understand, or we as drivers don't always understand, if you want to cut a tire with a knife, your best lubricant is water. So water on the tar surface is also a lubricant for tire, and that can reduce the amount of traction or gripability, whatever you want to call that, ability for the tire to hold on to the road, can be reduced by the water on the actual tar itself. Real problem that can actually arise. Okay, so what happens when you aquaplane? What should you do? Hitting the brakes is actually going to worsen it, because you are going to reduce the speed of your tires. When you reduce the speed of your tire is now static, and it's hydroplaning even worse. If you can just take your foot off the gas and let the car settle, you've got a much better chance. Take your foot off the gas and allow the car to drift through the water onto the tar, and just hold your steering wheel nice and straight, and try and keep your car straight on the road so that when it drops through the waterfall, it's in the right place to make contact with the tar. Turning your wheel, hitting your brake, real bad idea if you're on the hydroplane, because you are going to disorientate your car. You can't control that situation. Best thing is off the clutch, off the accelerator, allow the car, the wind resistance will allow the car to slow down, and try and keep your car as straight as you possibly can on that hydroplane, so that when it drops through onto the tar, you're okay. Also be careful when you've got puddles. You have no idea how deep it is. We had that accident just a couple of weeks ago, about a week ago, with a 4x4 that got swept off the bridge. If that water is deeper than 3 or 4 inches, do not go through it unless you've actually walked through it. In Africa, we used to have a lot of problems when you came to rivers and drifts and things like that, where you had water across the road and you couldn't see where the bridge was. We would actually take a stick, you would take a stick like a blind man, and use the stick going forward. And if that water was deeper than a foot or 2 foot, stay out of it. because that current can take you away without any problems at all. And the reason you use a stick is so that you can feel whether the bridge or the platform, which was there before, still exists, because that is also a problem. That thing can be completely washed away by the currents earlier in the day, and you see the surface of the water, it's brown, it looks all friendly, and the next thing you know, you go into a ditch and there's no platform left, and you just go floating down the river. Not a good idea, not a pleasant situation. So be really, really careful. And the other thing that I always tell people, remember there's this thing that you get taught. You get taught by the DVSA, and that says that you should use your fog lights, if your visibility is less than 100 meters. Now, visibility due to fog or mist, not visibility because of darkness, because a lot of people tend to really switch on their fog lights when it's not necessary. So if your visibility has been reduced by 100 meters or less, or mist on the highway, and this happens on the highway, there's a lot of mist thrown up by the cars, vehicles, trucks, everything, then you need to use your fog lights as well. Now, you've got to be really careful with your fog lights, because your fog lights can do a lot of blinding if you use them in an unnecessary circumstance. That's the first thing. The second thing I would say to you, if there's really heavy fog and you really feel, wow, there's heavy fog, the best thing you can do is go find a cafe, have a cup of coffee until the fog is cleared. Don't drive in foggy conditions. It's just too dangerous, because what happens, it's not the mistake you make. It's the mistake the guy doing 70 miles an hour and doesn't realize that his visibility has been reduced to 20 or 30 meters, because a car traveling at 70 miles an hour will only see those brake lights 30 or 40 meters away from where they are because of the fog. He's got no time to stop. No time. He will not get his brakes on in time and stop his car. So the problem that you've got is in fog, it's not about what you can see. Because, yes, it is. But you can reduce your speed because you're in fog. And then the guy coming down the road at 70 miles per hour doesn't realize how dangerous it is, because he thinks, oh, this is a highway, everyone's traveling at 60 or 70 miles per hour. And that's when the problems come up. You can go back at a lot of these accidents on the UK roads where people have had multiple people running into each other in fog. It always happens if you get heavy fog, people tend to run into each other because they don't realize how much distance you need to stop when you're traveling at higher speeds. So maybe you realize that and you slow down. The guy coming down the road behind you hasn't realized that. And you're the guy who's going to get hit. So my approach is, if the fog is really heavy and you cannot see that 100 meters, you just put on your fog lights to find a caf. Go and sit in the caf, have a cup of coffee, and wait for the fog to lift. That's honestly my serious approach to that. Unless you have a medical emergency or it's a real emergency, stay off the roads when we have fog like that. Because honestly, the problem is not your driving, it's the other people's driving. Okay, guys, are there any questions? Anybody want to raise their hand and ask any questions about that? So remember, in the DVSA, when you go for your test, they can ask you this question. They can say to you, when should you use your fog lights? Well, the thing is, if I really need to use my fog lights, I will go and have a cup of coffee. That's not in the DVSA, but that's the right answer. But the other answer is, the correct answer they're looking for is, if my visibility has been reduced to 100 meters or less due to fog or mist, not due to darkness, due to fog or mist, I should then put on my fog lights. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Raquel. Okay, Raquel, do you want to present your the little thing you put together for us just quickly? You want to go with that?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chris, for that very informative talk about hydroplaning. That was actually quite an eye-opener for me. Yes, I think I've actually experienced that a few times in my life, because I've been driving for a few years now. So yes, definitely something worth noting. I'm going to be presenting to you just a little short presentation about us. I'm not sure how many of you tonight are new here or existing clients, but just to give you an idea of what we're all about, who we are, how we operate. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask. So yes, please bear with me while I share my screen. All right. Okay, perfect. Can everybody see my screen? Well, great. Okay, so a brief introduction. Welcome to Best Driving School London, your gateway to confident driving. Experience the difference. And what I mean by the difference is the difference between our school and other driving schools in London. All right, so about us, a little bit about us. We are, in fact, the largest privately owned driving school in London. We have an extensive reach across the greater London area, which means we have over 2,000 students on our books at any given time. We have over 500 ADI instructors, both manual and automatic. And we also offer video tutorials, which are specifically designed to assist you with passing your practical test. And these are done by ours truly, Chris, the professional that knows everything about that there is to know about driving. These videos are very good to watch. I've seen them all myself, very useful. So for those of you that are enrolled in our courses or about to enroll, please do yourselves a huge favor and watch these videos. They could actually reduce the time that you spend with an instructor. Next, okay. So we have a dedicated team of client managers. Incidentally, our team is growing. I joined some time ago, and since then the company has been growing and growing and growing. And yes, we seem to just need more and more client managers. But I must mention to you that we receive regular training, ongoing training, in order to best give our personalized service to all the customers that we approach, or clients, I should say. We do a tailored support based on location, course type, and instructor preferences. So wherever you are based within the London area, we look at that. We look at the best match for you in terms of instructors, and we look at the best match for you in terms of test centers and your availability, the instructor's availability, and we do that by matching you the perfect instructor. All right, and then thereby we ensure client satisfaction and comfort. And of course, being a client manager, we are here to listen to any quibbles you may have about your instructor. If you're not happy with your instructor, we will happily assign a new one to you. And if you're not happy with the test center or the date that we've chosen for you, we'll move your date to accommodate you. If you feel that you are ready halfway through your course for your lessons, and even if your instructor tells you that you're ready, we will happily refund you the rest of your course fee, because we just operate like that. Everything we do is to ensure client satisfaction. So that is the most important thing for us. All right, here's some benefits of joining our team. We do have a 98% pass rate. So yes, that is because of the service we offer as client managers. We have a lot of repeat clients as well, and we get a lot of client referrals. So yes, I would say about, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, between 30 to 40% of our new clients are referrals.
Yeah, that's right.
Because of the great service that we provide. And then, of course, we have expert instructors. We do not recruit instructors that have a bad record or that tend to cheat money. You'll find that a lot of times when you go out to just one of those instructors you find online, they charge you a cheap rate, and then you land up actually paying a lot more to them because they just insist that you need more lessons and more lessons and more lessons and more lessons. And at the end of the day, you'll realize that you've paid a fortune to them, and that they don't actually teach you anything new. They just keep repeating themselves. You know what you're doing, but they just keep saying, oh, you need more lessons, you won't pass. And then, you're later paying a lot more than you would with booking a course with us. So our instructors are actually inclined to be very honest with us. If they're not, I mean, one time they're not honest with us, they don't work for us anymore. That's simple as that. So yes, we've got a very good relationship with our instructors. Some of them have been with us for many years. So there's that trust, that relationship that we've built with them. And then, yes, they will advise you, very honestly saying to you, listen, you actually need a few more lessons. Or they will tell you, you're quite test ready. They'll do a mock test. And if you pass it with flying colors, they'll say, listen, you paid for too many hours. Tell BDS to refund you and we'll book a test for you. So that's the relationship we have with our instructors. All right. And then when we come to scheduling, again, we're very flexible there. We fit into your time, to your calendar. I mean, we've got a lot of single moms out there that have to fetch kids from school. And, so we don't schedule lessons around that time. We ensure that, the instructors and the clients work at a time that is convenient for both. So, yes, it doesn't matter how busy you are. Wherever you've got a gap, we will get an instructor to fill that gap for you and make sure that you can do a lesson. I mean, one of the clients I've had, in fact, quite a few of them, I'm sure a lot of my fellow client managers will have the same experience, where we've got a lot of students that are enrolled in uni, and we've got to schedule their lessons around uni times because there's study breaks and there's all sorts of things in between. So we work out the schedules according to their schedule. And instructors understand and know this. So that is where we come from. All right. And then one plus that we offer is theory tuition, which I know not many driving schools out there do offer. But we have this fantastic platform that you log in, we give you a login and password, and you log in. We can monitor your progress. You can log in and you go through the whole entire course. It literally mimics what you can expect from a theory test, but obviously also educates you. There's some videos in there, lots of interesting materials. And once you go through all of that, you can test yourself as well. And we can test you. We can definitely see how well you are doing. So it's very interactive. It's stunning. It really has helped. A lot of my clients have passed their theory first time. And then I've had a few clients that have failed theory several times. They've come to me after doing their theory about 6 or 7 times. And I say to them, okay, well, let's do this. They log on and boom, after 2 weeks, they do their theory test and they pass first time. So I've had a lot of that. So yes, we secure your theory test booking when you are ready to do your test. I think usually if you're going to dedicate some time to doing a theory, it will be around 2 weeks, maybe a bit more, maybe less, depending on how much time you have available. But that's more or less when we look at booking your theory test for you. Yes, so if there's any questions around that, let me know. Moving on. Yes, and then our number one seller, which I think is fantastic, is our fast track test book system. So we actually have a team of dedicated staff that look at the DVSA website on a daily basis for cancellation tests that come in. And of course, we've got a database of people looking for these tests. So we snatch them up the minute we get them. So yes, it does take quite a bit of effort to do that. But we've managed to streamline the process in such a way that we are able to pick these tests up and offer them to these clients almost instantly. Yes, so we basically overcome the 5 to 6 month waiting period. We actually even get instructors calling us saying, look, there's some other students from, private students or from other schools. They heard about you. Please, can you find them a test? They've been looking for months and they sign up with us. Boom, boom, boom. A week later, they've got a test booking. So it also helps the instructors to plan around that test and lessons and everything. It's a fantastic system. I think this is one of the best selling points that we have. 99% of our course clients get a test, and I'm not joking. I am not joking. In fact, every single course client that I have had this year, not one of them have waited longer than a week after finishing their lessons for a test. And I can attest to that myself. And I'm pretty sure my fellow client managers can say the same. It's only on a rare occasion that a test cannot be found within 2 weeks due to perhaps the client falling ill and they can't make that specific test date, or the instructor car has malfunctioned. He's got to take it in for service, so he can't make the test date with the client. So we're obviously going to encounter problems like that. But like I say, 99% of the time, we can secure a test date when you are ready to take your test. So yes, for me, I'm very happy about this service that we offer. Next. All right, so these are some milestones. While you learn to drive with us, you must realize that we are, first, number one, a trusted driving school with over 20 years experience in providing quality driving education. And Chris, being our chief driving instructor, been there for many years, done that, he can attest to that. He personally speaks to all our instructors, and you can bet your bottom dollar that we have the best instructors. Number two, starting from one car to a fleet of vehicles. Yes, we do also hire out vehicles to instructors when they don't have any available. Yes, we do that. So yes, we've grown our business and expanded throughout the greater London area. So yes, we've got instructors based all over London. We've got tests booked all over London, clients all over London. So yes, very exciting stuff. And number three, which is for me very, very key, is that we personally develop meaningful relationships with both clients and instructors. So yes, of course, instructors also have issues. You know, sometimes a client will arrive late for a lesson and the instructor will let us know, look, your client hasn't arrived, please can you contact them and find out what the problem is. We get in touch with clients. Client will say, oh gosh, I'm stuck in traffic from work, or whatever, there's been a breakdown on the road, whatever. We communicate that both ways. So we make sure that both our instructors and our clients are happy, and there's clear, transparent communication between both. And that is what we are here for, to create that relationship, to make sure that both clients and instructors can come to us with any issues that they may have. All right, and number four, once we've got pass rates, our graduates are confident drivers who know the rules of the road and are ready to take on the world. And I must just mention that we have so many reviews from clients that have passed. Okay, there's a question from Michael. So, any plans to expand outside the Greater London area, i.e. around Kent or Surrey? Chris, maybe you can answer that question.
Yeah, I think if the opportunity exists, I mean, the first thing is to find reliable instructors before we go into those areas. So we've always found that concentrating on London, there's a certain ethos within London, and often one can supplement driving test areas easily within London because of the internal transport system that there is in London. Outside London, you have a lot of areas where the driving test centers are very, very far apart. And then teaching somebody in an area which is not suited to their area can be problematic. So on occasion, we have had people contact us in different areas, and then we will help those instructors to develop their business within their area. But it's dependent, it's instructor dependent. We don't like to get involved in areas where we don't have instructors or don't have reliable instructors. That's really what it's about. In London, it's easy because any test center within London, we can cover with 3 to 4, maybe in some places up to 15 instructors. So we have numerous instructors within specific test center areas. And that means that if you have a problem with a test, then we can supplement that with another instructor. Or if you have sometimes people don't like the instructor, they don't like the instructor they are dealing with. That's one of the big problems that we try to avoid, is having isolated test centers where we can't cover if there's an emergency test in an area. And we often find people who take tests from us, the instructors take tests from us because they've given up their names or they bring their students to us to find tests for their students. And then what happens is that instructor who brought the student now all of a sudden has a problem, and then we need to cover him for the test. So there's all those sort of factors that we have to take into consideration. Okay, Raquel, I think that's answered that question, yeah.
Yeah, incidentally, the tests that we book are not just in London. We actually have a lot of requests from, the outlying areas. So yes, we do have a lot of outlying area tests. If you call us and you need a test in Liverpool or wherever, we'll find that test for you, no worries. And then another note is we just recently acquired a new instructor out in Southampton. But yes, that's only one instructor. So yes, I think we definitely will look into expanding in the near future, once the need is there. And we actually have a course or 2 running in Southampton. So yes, we're growing. Okay, so Michael asks, what is the average monthly pass rate for candidates taking driving test BDS?
I'll take
assuming
that. Yeah, I'll take that.
Reliable metric.
Raquel, just repeat the question to me, please.
What is the average monthly pass rate for candidates taking a driving test with BDS, assuming that's a reliable metric you guys use to measure BDS's service performance?
It varies from place to place. Normally, what we try to do is look at metrics higher than the actual. We try to get higher metrics than the actual driving test center metrics. But let me explain something to everybody so everybody can understand what the metrics mean. The first thing is that you'll look at a driving test center and they will tell you we have a 37% pass rate. You have to understand that means that 37% of the people, out of every 100 people, 37 that attend the driving test center are passing. That means that no matter who you are, if you are an average person, you will need to attend the driving test center 3 times before you actually manage to pass your test, because you need, and that I'm saying, if you're an average person with an average instructor and it's an average situation, you will need to attend that driving test center 3 times before 3 times or more before you get close to 100% chance of passing that test. So don't be fooled by the fact that somebody says to you, well, the driving test center has a 37% pass rate. That's not a first-time pass rate. That is a pass rate for everybody who attends the driving test center. When you do the statistics on that, you find out that actually the first-time pass rate drops to something like 16 to 17%. Your chances of passing a test the first time is between 16 and 17%. And any instructor who actually has a pass rate in excess of 40% or more is doing really well, because that means his students don't need to attend those tests so much. Now, what are the average? I would be really honest with everybody about this. As far as I'm concerned, it depends on the student, it depends on the preparation they've done, it depends on what happens on the test day, it depends on whether the test is what time of the day of traffic, it depends on whether they know the area. There's a lot of unknowns and knowns in that. But don't be flustered by that. We do give a lot of free material for people to be able to pass their tests. Now, Raquel mentioned a figure earlier, and I think this is really important. The reason we can claim the 80, 88, 89, 87% is that's because students stay with us until they pass. First-time pass rates, even the best instructors, are not going to be much more than 70 to 80% first-time pass rates. I've had a run of 13 first-time pass rates where 13 students went and they passed the first time. But then I had a run of 3 or 4 fails. And so it is difficult. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing. But honestly, guys, the most important thing I can say to you is practice. Do whatever you can to know the rules inside out, know what you're expecting, and really, really, our BDSL Online is a really good source of what you need to know to be able to pass your driving test, which you can get from joining our group. Okay, is there anything else, Raquel?
Yes, just some reviews, basically, for people that are unsure. These are reviews from all sources, from our website, from all our social media platforms, YouTube, wherever. I've just literally just grabbed a few and put them on here. I mean, if I could show you all our reviews, I would need another a whole day to go through all of them. But for me, this is really important because it shows that we are providing the service that we say we are. So if you have the time, please do go onto our social media platforms, go onto our website, go through the reviews. They're not made up. They are real, genuine reviews. People's names, sometimes their email address, contact numbers are there. You're welcome to contact them if they have left their details and check with them. But these are all genuine reviews. I mean, we have so many of them. It's unbelievable. And for me, that is the most important aspect for any business in this world, is the reviews that we get, because it shows that we are doing something right. And that's our aim. That is our aim. We're not out to scam anybody out of any money or try and get as much money from you as we can by, making you do more and more lessons, like some instructors out there. I've had a lot of clients come to me saying that they've had 40 hours of lessons with an instructor privately, and they've gotten nowhere fast with them. And I say to them, well, in that case, just try one refresher lesson with one of our instructors, and they take another few lessons after that, and they pass their test first time, and they say, why didn't I come to you first? You would have saved me so much money. So yes, our reviews speak for themselves. So I have to do a bit of a brag session there. But thank you. Thank you for letting me. And that about sums it up, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you have more confidence in what we do from this, and I hope you spread the word for us. Thank you so much. And it's over to you, Chris. Thank you.
Sorry, I have a question here from Michael Sa. I'm trying to understand the question. He says, based on Cobby's response with respect to the test center pass rate, does BDS then advise candidates on test centers to register for their test to increase their student chance to access the boosted BDS rate? The answer is, what we recommend is 2 things. The first thing is do a structured course. In other words, doesn't matter where it is. I don't believe you should be taught to pass a test. I believe you should be taught to drive safely, and driving safely is more important than passing a test in my book, because you can be grilled to pass a test, and then in the end you might not have the confidence or ability to actually drive safely on the road. So to me, it's more important that you be taught how to drive safely, and because you're driving safely, you pass the test. So what would we say? Do we say, okay, well, the driving test center and this is purely speculation, I'm not working on stats or anything, in Timbuktu is a easier place to pass your test, and you're driving in London. What? You want to drive in London and pass in Timbuktu, which has no traffic lights, no stop rights, and the only roundabout is because there's a chicken run in the middle of the road. That is not going to help you in any way whatsoever, and it's dangerous. So I'm not for that. I think we've got to do what we have to do is we have to do what we have to do it well. And if we can do that well, we've got to keep you safe on the road. And that's what it's about. I don't want to have a situation where we are promoting unsafe practices. To me, that's completely the wrong attitude. To me, I have 6 kids, 14 grandchildren. What would I be doing to those people if I was promoting unsafe practices? You live in Hendon. Do your test in Hendon if we can find you a test in Hendon. But if we can't, you can do your test in Barnet because it's similar circumstances. But then let's get you assigned to an instructor that works the Barnet area, knows the Barnet area, and understands the driving test center and the driving test process in that area to help you get used to the roads in those areas. But don't go to Scotland in some crazy place just because they have a very high driving test pass rate, and then come down here and try and apply your actual driving test in an area which is much denser traffic, because you are going to be extremely stressed, and it's going to make your driving process much more difficult. About 6 months ago, I had somebody come to me who'd been driving for 15 years. And they said to me, I don't drive on highways. I said to them, why don't you drive on highways? He says, well, just after I got my test, I tried to get onto a highway where I had to merge into a lane. And a truck nearly drove me off the road because they wouldn't give way to me. And I haven't been back on those roads again. And I said to them, well, what's the point then? No, I keep on the side roads. And I was just thinking, if you actually look at the statistics, side roads, if you actually look at the accident statistics, side roads are more dangerous than highways. She was exposing herself to a more dangerous situation as a result of not actually having had proper training on how to deal with merging onto traffic on a highway. So my approach is, guys, don't skimp on it. A simple example is the following. You think, okay, I have got a driving test coming up. And your instructor says, listen, I'm not comfortable because you need another 4 hours. Now, 4 hours in our books are going to cost you around about 120 odd pounds, just as an example, not a final figure. So for 120 odd pounds, you're going to have a 20% or 30% greater chance of passing that test and getting it behind you, because you just need to wrap up a couple of things. And honestly, guys, you have no idea at the end of your course how much 4 hours can make a difference to your ability to pass the driving test. I have seen people come together in the last 2 hours of a course, and their driving literally changes from being insecure, nervous, and difficult to natural drivers in 2 hours because of all the work they've done before. If they didn't have that last 2 or 3 hours, that can cause a problem for them in the driving test. And I always say, the other thing is, people always say, how do I know if I'm ready for the test? Well, it's simple. Get your instructor, it doesn't matter who he is or where he is, all the instructors can do this. Just ask your instructor to do a mock driving test with you. Do a mock driving test with you. If you can drive for an hour without a serious or dangerous mistake on a proper test route or a simulated test route in the driving test center area where you're going to take your test, you're good to do the driving test. Because on the day of the test, you're going to be nervous. You are going to have all sorts of problems with focus and all the rest of it. You've got a strange person sitting next to you. There's all sorts of other reasons and factors that come into play which make it more difficult for you to act at your optimum performance. I just wanted to report back on something because I was just wondering about something. Guys, now think about this, all right? So let's assume you're driving. We're going back to this, what we discussed. I'm closing off with that, and then I'm just going to introduce you to BDSL Online quickly so that you can have a look at that as well. But I just want to go back to this one thing that we spoke about earlier, stopping distance. Guys, if you really want, you really want to do a test on stopping distance, ask your instructor to do an emergency stop with you. Get your car up to get in a safe place, get your instructor to take you to a safe place and to do a proper emergency stop with you. Take your car to a place where you can safely drive, say, at 20 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour, something like that, and do an emergency stop. And then ask the instructor to do the emergency stop or give you the emergency stop signal to do the emergency stop at a specific point where he can then measure and have a look at that distance. Now, when you're doing 20 miles per hour, your stopping distance is going to be 12 meters. 12 meters. 12 meters is 3 car lengths at 20 miles per hour. So from the time you get the signal to stop until you actually bring the car to a standstill, it will take you approximately 12 meters, providing the tires are good, providing the surface is good, it's not wet, it's not icy, you're not hydroplaning, you're not doing all of that other stuff. Normal tar, normal situation, 12 meters. You're driving in mist. In mist, the tar is wet. Mostly it's wet. Whether that's mist from the cars picking up the mist, or from mist that's coming in and the mist comes down and lies on the tar, that's your very slightly wet thing bringing up oil, all the rest of that sort of stuff is in play here. And you're in mist and your visibility is less than 100 meters. Who would like to take a guess how many meters you need at 70 miles per hour to bring a car to a standstill? How many meters? It's 96 meters. Your 100 meters of visibility at 70 miles per hour is going to be taken up by 96 meters of stopping. Now, if you can't see that car at 50 meters because of the mist, you are not going to be able to stop when you see that car. You're not stopping. You're not stopping in time. The tar is wet. The tires are wet. There could be a bit of oil there. All sorts of things. You hit that brake. Your traction is reduced. This 96 meters is in dry ground. So that's why I say, and I have been on the road so many times. And then I'm driving, I like to be really slow when I'm driving in mist. And you get guys flying past you at, I don't know what speed. And you think, how are you going to stop if something goes wrong because you can't see that far ahead of you? Guys, dangerous situation. Very, very dangerous. So just quickly, just briefly, at 30 miles per hour, it's 23 meters. At 40 miles per hour, it's 36 meters. At 50 miles per hour, it's 53 meters. At 60 miles per hour, it's 73 meters. And at 70 miles per hour, it's 96 meters. You could be right in the stopping distance, Michael, from the time you hit the brake, but you always got a thinking time as well. So stopping is normally includes thinking time. And the measurements I've just given you are what I Googled. So I can't always remember them. I just know, be careful. That's all. You've got to be really careful. Okay, and you had one other questions here. I'm going to go through some questions here. Can the result of a driving exam not be challenged? Yes, absolutely. You can challenge it. You can write something to the DVSA. He's got a body cam on nowadays. He didn't have one on before. I doubt they'll make the footage available to you unless you threaten to beat him up after the test. But yes, you can challenge it. The trouble is that let's assume this is what the process is normally. I say to people, look, the best thing you can do is get on with your life, get your next test booked in, make sure you don't make the mistakes the examiner says, and come properly prepared to the test, the best you can. Because if you challenge him, it's going to take you 2 to 3 months to challenge him. Then you might, at best result, get a retest in 2 or 3 months or 4 months' time. And then they'll put 2 examiners in the car with you if they give you a retest. And remember, from my point of view, they now have to prove that you were not ready to pass the test. So you are really at a disadvantage. what my recommendation is, trust the system, submit your complaint without asking for anything, get on and do your next test. Just remember that the moment you've submitted a complaint, you're going to have a human factor come in, like the post office scandal. Everybody's looking at that at the moment. How fair has that been when authorities get hold of your neck? They don't treat you fair. So my approach is shrug your shoulders, go have a beer, get back into it and get it over and done with. You're better off just focusing on getting past. I find it quite concerning to make life-changing decisions to be determined solely by an individual. Well, the trouble is, what is the alternative? Do you want to pay twice as much for the test and have 2 examiners in the car? And how many people can afford that? So I don't see that is a thing. Remember, you can always ask for your instructor to go with. I'm not one that, to me, it depends on what the student wants. Some students like the instructor to go with because they find they can feel more secure and they can get a better opinion about what happened and a clearer idea of what the mistakes were. Because often a student doesn't know when they finish the test, they are too hyped up to actually hear what the examiner says, and then they don't get it all and they don't understand what happened. So it does help in that sense if the instructor goes with. It's also good to have the instructor come at the end of the test and have a chat with the examiner, give the examiner permission for the instructor to hear what the outcome of the test is. That's also very important, I think. And a good instructor will want to hear because they want to correct themselves and keep them up to speed with what they need to work with on the student. But I've had students do things in driving tests which they've never done on the road, and then they will admit they didn't see the car on the roundabout or something like that. And the last thing around that is, so you as a student can decide whether your instructor goes with you. You can request the instructor to be present at the debrief, always a good idea. If you don't want, for some private reason, you don't like that, then that's fine as well. Just say that to the examiner. And thirdly, attending the test. Whether the instructor attends the test or not is the student's choice, is really the student's choice. And that depends on how the student feels about the additional scrutiny and the privacy arrangement with the actual instructor himself. My recommendation would be that decision rests with the student. I think the student has enough pressure and they need to decide what works best, what's going to work best for them on the test. I would never put extra pressure on a student to say, no, I'm the instructor, I should attend. I don't think that's the right attitude. I think the student is already under sufficient pressure that you don't want to add to that pressure as an instructor. Okay, that's it, guys. Wrapping up now. Questions, let me just go. There's one more here. Yeah, you can get Michael, no problem. You want to, we don't say we give our students all the same amount of opportunity. Remember, when people come to us to book them a driving test, that they have a plan, they have a schedule, they have an idea of what they want to do. We would not recommend anybody coming to us and saying to us, we would not recommend any of our client managers to say, you can only find driving tests through us. Students can go and find their own driving test. The difference is this: if you have a certain amount of time in your life and you want to go onto the DVSA system to find a driving test, you can sit there and click away for a very long time and not find a driving test. And the reason we have more flexibility in that is because of the number of students that ask us to find them driving tests, and then they aren't ready for the driving test. So those tests become available within our system. And for that reason, we have an admin charge, we have a thing, and the driving DVSA charge is £62. There's no reason for you to pay that extra unless you have some emergency or some reason, or you've planned it with your instructor or you're trying to get it done, you're going to pay a prime with us because of that, because that's our job. Our job is, these dear client managers of mine don't tell you how much I fight with them to find driving tests. And they have to sit and click away to find driving tests. And then the DVSA system gets overloaded because sometimes the DVSA system is too busy and they can't get in. And it is an absolute nightmare to manage these driving tests. And nobody understands the administration until you actually try and do it yourself. But you're welcome. I don't want anybody to pay for this service on the premise that that's the only place to find it. Please, guys, don't come to us if you're quite happy to wait 3 or 4 months. But I would say to you, if that's your objective, book your driving tests now for May or June when the DVSA make them available. And that way you can plan your courses. You can come to us and say, look, I've got my driving test. I don't need to pay for that. Absolutely. I have no problem with that. Let's do that. And then we'll get you a good instructor for that course. No problem. I really don't mind that. That's not a problem. Are you suggesting that it's beneficial to have a driving instructor to accompany the student during the test? No, I'm not. I think in certain circumstances, there is always a benefit to it for the student to have a clarity about the mistakes that happen during the driving test, because the instructor can actually experience that mistake. He's not allowed to intervene. He's not allowed to snort or cough or throw his hands up or go for the handbrake. He's just got to sit there and take the beating. But I think it's good if that's not a problem for the student. If it's not a problem for the student, I would recommend it. But the thing is that a lot of students, and I'm very open with my students, I say to them, what do you want to do? These are the benefits of the instructor going with, and these are the disadvantages. The disadvantages is that the students often feel that it is too much of it's too heavy a burden to have two people criticizing them and watching them driving. And there's also this theory it adds extra weight to the car. Well, I'm not really sure that makes a difference at 20 miles per hour, to be honest. What would you advise a student to maintain concentration all through the driving test? From 14 to 16 hours, they start to get the driving under control. Now you start doing roadcraft with them. And normally, if you're teaching an average student, you would find roadcraft will run through from 25 to about 28 hours. And that will depend on how much study they do on our BDSL Online, how much they do test preparation study, how well they know their rules, how well they know their roundabouts, these sort of things. That's that period of time. And then you get to this end stage where they're getting ready for the test and we start doing mock tests with them. Well, during that period of time, you've got to back off and allow the student to make controlled mistakes so that you can find out what the mistakes are. If you're continually structuring your instruction at that stage, the problem is the student doesn't get to make mistakes so that you can pick up on the mistakes and correct the mistakes. Obviously, you can't let the student make a mistake that will endanger you and the car. So you've got to be aware of the parameters of what you allow the student to do. But that's where you are. So, and then you get to this final stage, if you've got enough time and enough hours with the student, where the student takes over. And now they want to drive. And they now know what they're looking at. They've identified the junctions. They can identify the roundabouts. They know what they're doing. And that's the stage they're ready for the test. If you're intervening if you're, as an instructor, you're still intervening while the student is driving, and you're trying to instruct them while they're driving, they're not ready for their test. They've got to be in the position where they've got confidence to take over and to do the driving. Okay. And then your question was concentration. The thing that every student has to teach himself is when you're driving, you have to be absolutely focused on the road. You've got to know what's coming from behind. You've got to know what's coming from the side. You've got to know what's going on. You've got to be focused on your driving. You cannot back off on that. And that's a discipline you have to learn. And if you haven't learned that discipline, there's no way you'll pass your test. This won't happen. If you haven't got the discipline to concentrate and focus on the road, because you're going to need that once you pass your test, even more so because there's no one else watching the road for you. I think that's it. I'm going to call it a day. We've been at it for over an hour now. Please remember one other thing. Our BDSL Online is video tutorials, which are there for all our clients, whether you're participating in us finding you tests, or whether you're participating in our intensive courses, or whatever you're doing with us through our, even our theory tests and so on. The roundabouts videos are really useful to prepare you for the theory as well. And you can just contact your client manager, whoever you're talking to in the company, contact them and ask access to that. We normally sell that to outside clients. We have a number of outside clients that also use that platform for their test preparation, but our internal clients also get that free of charge. Okay, so that's it.
And yes, please do share. I mean, we want to serve the community in the best way that we can.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.